Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and I'm here with my daughter Autumn, and we are doing a Star Wars 7 review. This is spoilerific, spoilers all over it. So if you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie and then come on back and enjoy this video. So what we're going to talk about today is Poe Dameron, and so I'll let you start. What do you think of Poe Dameron as a character?
I really liked his character. I think one of my favorite things about him was his relationship with Finn. Like, as soon as they got on the plane, he had, like, that instant camaraderie. Honestly, I wish he was in the movie more. He was in, like, the opening scene and then a little later on, but he wasn't in it very much.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely feel like we got to see the least of Poe of any of the characters, right? I really feel like we know the least about him of Rey, Finn, and Poe. Would you agree that he was like the least explored?
Of the three new main characters, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But I think Star Wars 7, it had a lot of characters, and it was really difficult to get everybody in there, and really I wanted to see more, deeper on all of them. But I actually think Poe was fairly. We really didn't get to see his character very deeply yet. So I, just what did you think? What do you think was his most significant skill in the film that he showed?
Oh, definitely piloting.
Absolutely. So he was an X-wing pilot, and I think it was a great scene where he comes in off of the lake, and you can see like the water spray is kicking up behind him. And one of the things I think is really very important about Poe is he is a leader, and I think that could be really important in the movies coming up. You think you really didn't see him as a leader?
Not very much. I mean, he did a bit of stuff with the Resistance. I guess, again, this may be just because I didn't see him as much at all.
Yeah.
But why do you consider him a good leader?
So one of the reasons why I think you're right. I should definitely qualify him as a leader, and the thing I would qualify as a leader is he is a leader when he is in the X-wing seat. So when he's a pilot, he's clearly leading a team of Starcraft pilots. Yeah. So a few things about. So I think I'm gonna kind of open this up, right? So one of the things I think is the most interesting thing about Poe Dameron is he is a dog of war. So you remember how he kind of had some funny lines in the movie, and there was a good bit of humor centering around him. So I actually think that's kind of a foil. It's kind of a little bit of a dodge. I don't think that's what the character is really about. So my take on Poe Dameron is that he is really a dog of war. And do you remember whose dog of war specifically he was? Who unleashed him?
Oh, General Organa.
That's right, General Leia Organa. So he was specifically a Resistance agent, a Resistance pilot that she sent to do a mission, and he did that mission. And I think at Poe Dameron's heart, he is. While we see him piloting a lot, I really think he's a soldier, and really even more than that, I think he's a killer, right? Because there's a lot of humor that surrounds him, but my scene that I remember most about Poe Dameron is Maz Kanata's pirate bar, and so when he comes in off the lake, he just begins wrecking TIE fighters left and right, and he had to kill at least 5-10 people quickly. You know what I mean? And that's not a small thing. Like there was that scene that we got to see where Rey actually killed one stormtrooper. And do you remember what her face looked like when she had shot her first stormtrooper?
Sorry, I haven't seen it in a while. Which scene?
Yeah, so Rey actually shoots a stormtrooper. So Maz Kanata's pirate bar, she goes out and she's kind of thinking, and so basically there we saw that she was. So she shoots a actual stormtrooper with the laser that Han Solo had given her,
Yeah.
and she just gets this mortified look on her, which I thought was really important because a lot of times in Star Wars films, when people are being killed, it's really abstract, and you don't know if they were knocked out or if they were killed. When ships are blowing up in the sky, those people are dead.
Yeah.
And so more than anybody else, like I feel that Poe Dameron is extremely comfortable killing people when he is in his X-wing starfighter, and and that is, I think, is really interesting about him, and I really feel like he is, like General Leia's dog of war, just kind of let off the leash to go do what she needs done. And I'm really curious if that's going to continue, if he's going to be like her direct report. You know what I mean? Do you think that's going to be in two, or do you think he'll be promoted and he might have more independence? What do you think?
Well, you do see him killing more than the other characters. However, I feel like that's almost more classic Star Wars, and only in the new films, like with Finn, like you sort of get that humanity of the stormtrooper.
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
like,
You're right.
There are people too.
They
don't have to be on the dark side.
I had not even thought about that. Like, before, they were literally nameless, faceless masses.
Yeah.
And for the first time, we really see stormtroopers as people. And so I think that's going to be interesting because, before, when you were just shooting lasers, it would hit this person. You didn't know if they were a clone. You didn't know if they were a real person. I've heard stories that some people thought they were robots, when they were watching the movies, which they don't look that different from C-3PO. I hadn't even thought of that. So, but I think, really, to understand Poe Dameron, you have to understand he is a killer and a soldier first. And I think one of the things why I keep saying, or I'm kind of pressing this point, is I think a lot of people are going to see Poe's humor, and there's a little bit of that, but I see far more, there's an intensity around him as kind of a soldier and as a key element in the film. So I think that's really kind of interesting. So I think some of the other things I think was interesting is Poe actually owes his life to someone, because I think there's a really good chance he would have died on that Imperial Star Destroyer. Who does he owe his life to?
Finn
Absolutely, yeah. Finn did help him escape, and I think one of the great scenes is where he and Finn reunite back on the planet where all the resistance generals and where all the resistance military leaders are, which I thought was really interesting. One thing that I'm really curious of in the new film is, so on that planet we see all those resistance generals, all those resistance admirals, and one of the things I think is really interesting is we have not seen a lot of the resistance's political leaders. And so that really hasn't been touched at all, and I'm really curious where they're going to go with that. In fact, it was really fascinating to me when I was watching this, and you see Poe reunites with Finn on that planet. There's a scene where they hug, and he's coming off of his X-wing. One of the things that I think is really neat is that harkens back to Episode 4, A New Hope, where Han and Luke have the same scene, like reuniting and just kind of saying hi as an X-wing is preparing to go out. But one of the things, and then we go right into that scene with all those resistance generals and those resistance admirals. And in in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, the first original Star Wars, Princess Leia was really a diplomat. She wasn't a military leader, right? And I'm really curious, do you think they did that on purpose, not having the military leaders there in the film? Or do you think we're going to see them more in Episode 8? Or why do you think they did that?
Well, isn't Leia still like a leader of the Resistance?
And she is a leader of the Resistance, but her former title was Princess Leia Organa. She is now General Leia Organa. And we don't know if they went down that road because Leia wanted to command more respect and thought she would command more respect as a military leader, and if she kind of wanted to distance herself from being a princess, because do you know why she might have wanted to distance herself from being a princess? Do you remember a terrible happening that happened in Star Wars Episode 4 with...
Yeah, she, a planet got destroyed.
Right, Alderaan, which were, so her home planet was actually blown up.
Yeah.
So, maybe just being referred to as a princess was really kind of dark for her. But clearly, if she had Poe as kind of like her dog of war that she could just unleash, and the way we saw her leading in the film, I think she was being successful as a military leader. It's my opinion that probably left a very large gap in the diplomatic um, strength of the resistance. And believe it or not, I actually think that might be one of the reasons why they were not able to put down the empire, because they had this like gap, this vacuum of political leadership when they were really strong on the military leadership. What do you think?
I suppose, honestly, in the Star Wars movies, a lot of times it does seem as if they sort of need more of a military strength than a political strength. And I know you are very into politics, whereas, like, me and my generation are less. Seeing lots of politics in this new movie wouldn't have helped.
That's interesting. Okay, so do you remember what your father's first degree is in?
Yeah, political science.
Right. So I have a degree in political science, so that's why I'm talking so much about political science here in this video. Because to me, I think political leadership is actually more important than military leadership. Military leadership is not nearly as versatile, and so I really feel that Leia Organa's transition from a princess, being a strong diplomatic leader, to being a general, a strong military leader, actually opened up a vacuum within the resistance. And I think it's one of the reasons why 30 years later we see that the empire is back as the First Order, right? And I think it's one of the reasons why the rebellion was not 100% successful. So yeah. So I think that I definitely think overall I think Poe was a great character. I really liked him. I think he was a really exciting addition. Oscar Isaacs is the guy who played him. What did you think of the actor who played him?
I thought he was a great actor. Personally, I was very engrossed in the story of the film, and a lot of times don't even give credit to the actors who play them, but everyone in Star Wars was incredible. And it was very neat because besides the big three from the previous movies, Leia, Luke, and Han, the others you didn't know offhand. I mean, they're actors,
right. Yeah.
but like it's no like Brad Pitt or like so. But I thought it was great to see Star Wars bringing up new actors like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he was really talented. He did a great job, with the role. But I think overall, I definitely think Poe is my least favorite of the three.
Well, you keep referring to them as the three,
yeah.
And you made an allusion to Han back when he reunites with Luke. So do you think that Poe is the new Han?
Oh, it's a great question. I thought that the new slots were Rey as the new Luke, Finn as the new Princess Leia, and I know that sounds strange, but I actually think he's going to be. I think he could be the new political leader in the new. He could be a diplomat in Episode 8, and then I did think that that Poe was the new Han. It might be switched. I can't. I don't think Finn fits at all in Han's slot, does he? He's really not a rogue in any way. He's really overt. Would you agree that he's really overt?
That's true. And honestly, he fits in Leia's place as the love interest, not.
Oh wow!
Really,
holy cows! I hadn't even thought of that. I had
many
not
other
even
ways.
thought of that. Yeah, get this. So, you know what? Maybe they don't fit into the slots. Maybe the slots are being broken.
Which is a good thing. I particularly loved the movie, but I heard many people didn't because they said it was sort of a carbon copy of the last, like a Star Destroyer got destroyed and like there were those and Rey is very like she reminds you of Luke a lot, but
yeah.
But it really is a great film, like, aside from them.
Yeah.
And I feel like they help each other, like,
Yeah.
But yeah.
So one of the things I think is really interesting is, and I want to go back, I want to make sure I finish your question. One, I really appreciate that question because the more I think about it, I think they may be breaking molds, right? Because more I think about it, Poe 100% does not fit into Han's slot. The only similarity between Poe and Han is their quippiness, their ability to put in a quick, humorous line, right?
And they were also the pilot of the group.
Well, Luke was great. That's that. You know, one of the things I saw. One of the things I saw in the film that I had never thought of before is piloting is insanely important in the Star Wars world. So Luke is a great pilot. Han is a great pilot. Chewbacca is a great pilot. Pretty, you know. So like saying they're the pilot. I think Poe is 100% the pilot of the new films. I think it's really arguable who was a better pilot in the first film, whether that was Han or whether that was Luke. But one of the things I think is really interesting is, and I really hadn't thought of Poe in this way until you asked the question. Poe has an intensity that I think did not exist with Han. Han was like really, he would flare really bright and go off in a direction, but just, you know, really quickly he'd go off in a different direction. And the thing that is 100% different between Poe Dameron and Han Solo is Poe Dameron is incredibly loyal to the Resistance, to the point where I think he would, I think he would fly to his death if General Leia Organa told him to. You know, say, hey, I need you to go shoot down, I need you to go take your X-Wing into 100, you know, TIE fighters. He would not bat an eye. He would fly right in, do everything he could. And I think he would give his life for the Resistance without, you know, very, very quickly. He wouldn't, I think, you know, it wouldn't even be a thing that he would need to think that much on. Han Solo was barely loyal to the rebellion. So that is a fundamental difference between the two. So I think Poe is not the new Han. And really, the more I think about it, you know, I think Rey really fits into Luke's slot pretty solidly. Finn, I don't know if we know where he fits yet, you know, and so I think that's kind of interesting.
That's true. And another issue, if you did consider him as the new Han, I don't think that he and Rey even ever meet in this film, do they?
He and Rey are,
because
Poe Dameron and Rey.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, and that's a fundamental difference from the first films, which I really appreciate you joining me for this video because you really are helping me to think about the film in a different way. And one of the things that I really feel is so one of the things, the internet is a bit of an echo chamber where, you know, you hear, I think we hear views that a few people have, not most people, but we hear them because they're loudest on the internet. And so I did hear a lot of people saying what you were saying, oh, there's so many similarities between this and episode 4. But I agree with you. There's many, you know, new lines and new elements and new concepts that are presented in this film. And I think it's really unique, special film that is quite different than any of the Star Wars films that came before. And then one of the things I was really excited too about is so there was talk of people like this, people don't like this. So we are now you know, like a week and a half out from the release of the film, and one of the things that's really exciting is you know, I went to the movies today and for a different film than Star Wars, and every single Star Wars showing with 3D and 2D available was completely sold out, you know. And so you know, a week and a half after the films, these movies are still selling out. They're selling like crazy. And your mother told me today that one of the reasons why is non-Star Wars fans are going to this movie and saying that was a great movie, not that was a great Star Wars movie, just saying I really enjoyed seeing that movie. It was exciting. And that, I think, is brand new. I'm not sure that it's almost amazing to me to think that the Star Wars fandom can grow larger than it already is, because it seems like it's immense already. So I think it's kind of interesting. But
yeah. If I could bring up something else with Poe, now another one of my favorite characters in Star Wars was BB-8. Like he was a droid, but he was a major part of the movie. He was, I loved him, but he was only a part of the movie because of Poe. Poe gave him the map.
Oh my gosh, I had totally forgotten about this. Even beyond that, BB-8 is an incredible through line, right? So one of the things that was really interesting is BB-8 starts as Poe's droid, and by the end of the movie, it's pretty clear BB-8 is Rey's droid. You know, and so in fact, I'm really curious where BB-8 went at the end of the movie. Did he go with Poe? All right, so I think he went with Poe, which is really interesting.
In the last scene, it was just Rey. I don't.
Oh, and you know what? Also,
and it is his droid. I mean.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is Rey is arguably going to be trained as a Jedi, and so how much use is a droid when you're training to be a Jedi?
Well, I mean, Luke had R2-D2 and C-3PO.
And it was horrible for R2. Do you remember R2 on Dagobah? He fell in a swamp, right? and then also, what great thing got to happen to R2 in Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back? We actually get to see, if you remember, he was lifted up like telekinetically by Luke using the Force and then dropped. Like, being a droid while a Jedi is training is the worst duty. Like, it is the worst. So, but it is interesting that BB-8 returned to Poe. It also makes me really think that, like, I never thought about this, but I think BB-8 is almost takes the place of a pet. Like, it seems like...
Yeah, because I remember on the plane with Finn and Poe flying out, Finn calls BB-8 a toy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things, so in the new triad, okay, the old triad being Luke, Han, and Leia, in the new triad, Rey, Poe, and Finn, where would you rank Poe in your favorite among the triad?
Oh, well, third.
Third, yeah, so you agree with me. Okay. Who do you rank first and second?
Well, honestly, it is so different because it's barely even a triad. Honestly, I think Finn and Rey, and then Poe somewhere over there. Like, they
so you're
really
saying,
weren't
wow.
that...
Yeah.
Poe was an integral part of the film, but not in relation to Rey.
That's interesting. Okay, yeah. I do think he is part of the new triad. I see where you're saying. We did talk about that. We got to really learn the least about him. Mm-hmm. What did you think of Poe's behavior during torture by Kylo Ren?
Wow. He was... That is crazy, because I feel like with him, we got to see more of Kylo Ren's power.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. He was in that room, and he was very strong. He was resisting him in immense amounts of pain. And only when Kylo Ren goes, like, full out evil force, like, does he give information up.
Yeah.
So I was definitely impressed by that. Honestly, during it, I was when he screams, like, I was sort of rooting for him to, like, push through it. But I mean, Kylo Ren is so powerful. I don't know if it's even possible.
And it was almost a little embarrassing for Poe, because Kylo, kind of reaches out to him with his hand and, kind of pushes him in torture-wise. And then what's really sad is he's like, okay, I got it. Right? Like, thanks for telling me exactly where your droid is. And it was a little embarrassing for Poe there, because it really seemed like he wasn't that strong of a character. I think he is a strong character. I don't think we've seen all of his strengths so far. We've seen him in the killer role, we've seen him in the pilot role, but and we've seen him in the victim role, which is kind of like that's rough, which is really kind of interesting.
And when Rey is being tortured, she does, like, hold up a bit stronger. But I think that's definitely because of the Force.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that, like, we were talking about how he doesn't fit Han's role, but that is a similarity between the two. Like, neither of them really have much to do with the Force. Yeah. Would you disagree?
Well, actually, I have this weird theory about Finn that gets into the Force. And
but with Poe.
It's a great question. I definitely agree with you that Poe is probably the least connected to the Force. Now that is something that links in with Han.
Mm-hmm.
Han was the least connected with the Force.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And so one, I really appreciate you being in this video with me because I really got to think about Poe in a different way. Any other thoughts?
This is a less important part, but I liked his jacket, and that really connected Finn to Poe. Like,
agree.
Finn wears his jacket afterward, and that's why
Why they
BB-8
know
recognized
him?
him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was definitely interesting. And then Poe lets him keep it. I liked that.
That was
Yeah.
cool. I completely agree. And also, it was really kind of neat to see a garment play such an important role in the film. Like something as simple as a jacket really played a really important part. And that's a great point. Even like one of the things I thought was a great scene was where the TIE fighter crash lands on Jakku, and Finn reaches in and pulls out that jacket. And at first we're like, oh my gosh, is that the bloody shreds of his jacket? Or, but then he puts it on and he's like, oh, okay, Finn might be, Poe might be okay. So you're right. That's a great, and it was like it's almost like a talisman that passed between the two of them. It was really kind of interesting. Yeah.
And with when their plane crashed, that's another thing. I was not expecting Poe to even be alive. Like, because at first it crashes, and then it blows up. So you're like, he's definitely dead. But then he comes back.
Yeah.
And that was definitely surprising.
Very much so. That's a great point. Any other thoughts on Poe? Okay. That is fantastic. I think that's. I think we really got to. I'm really excited how much more I got to think about Poe from some of your questions. Just really thinking about this character a little more. I think one of the biggest things about Poe is I am super excited to see more of him in the next film.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and actually, it's going to be great. So it was really exciting. The last thing I'm going to say is, it's there's still plenty of time to see this movie on the big screen. I really encourage you if you've seen it. I'm hoping to see it for my 4th time tomorrow. And if you've seen it less than 10 times, you probably see it again. All right, take care. See you, everybody.